All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the incredibly high-stakes, honestly fascinating world of reading human behavior. And we're doing this by leveraging a literal FBI-grade framework developed by Joe Navarro, a former special agent who spent 25 years catching spies for a living. So we're going to decode that silent language we all speak, but, very few of us actually know how to read. Here's our tactical roadmap for today. 5 distinct, totally learnable chapters: catching a spy, busting body language myths, the head-to-toe scan, the science of space, and finally, the poker table tell. Let's get right into it.
Chapter 1. Catching a Spy. High Stakes and Subtle Tells.
Okay, picture this scenario. Navarro's team gets intel about a suspected mole who is perfectly blended into the United States. He looks American, passes as American, but is secretly working for a hostile intelligence service. How do you actually catch a ghost like that? Well, Navarro's team didn't use some dramatic Hollywood-style SWAT raid. They caught him using a brilliant 4-step observational process over a bouquet of flowers. Yeah, flowers. They were analyzing surveillance video of the suspect leaving a shop. Now, most Americans grab a bouquet by the stalks, holding the flowers facing up, right? But this suspect, he grabbed the stalks and held the flowers facing down. It's a super subtle, deeply ingrained habit common in Eastern Europe. Armed with just that tiny, nonverbal tell, Navarro sat down with the guy and simply asked a presumptive question. Would you like to know how we know? The suspect looked completely stunned. Navarro just said, "It was the flowers," and boom, secured the confession.
I mean, that story is just incredible, right? But to really master this skill ourselves, we have to ground everything in Navarro's foundational definition. He says nonverbals are literally anything that communicates but is not a word. It's how we dress, how we walk, how we sit. The crazy thing is, we're never in a state where we aren't transmitting information. Which brings us to a really core concept here: pacifying behaviors. Look, the vast majority of these nonverbal cues we transmit, they're basically biological, subconscious attempts to just comfort ourselves. When we experience stress or a sudden stimulus, our brain desperately seeks equilibrium, so it uses our physical body to self-soothe and basically calm that psychological discomfort.
Moving to Chapter 2, Busting Body Language Myths. Hollywood Fiction versus FBI Reality.
Before we teach you how to properly read people, we kind of need to unteach you some pervasive pop psychology nonsense. For decades, people have told you that if someone crosses their arms, they're blocking you out or being defensive. Total myth. In reality, crossing your arms is just a self-soothing mechanism. It's literally a self-hug. Actually, get this. Research shows we do this behavior way more out in public than we do in private, strictly to comfort ourselves in wide-open spaces.
And that builds right into another huge myth, the so-called Pinocchio effect. You know, the idea if someone clears their throat, touches their nose, or covers their mouth, they've absolutely got to be lying? Nope. Scientifically, humans are just lousy at detecting deception, and there is no magical, empirical Pinocchio effect. Touching the face? It's just another one of those pacifying behaviors we do while our brains are busy processing information.
So here's the so what of it all. We need to completely reframe our mindset right now. The goal of reading nonverbals is not hunting for lies. That's a fool's errand. The real goal is entirely about assessing psychological discomfort. It's about looking at an individual and asking, okay, what is their body transmitting in this exact second in response to what just happened?
Chapter 3. The Head-to-Toe Scan. Time to unpack the FBI's anatomical toolkit. Let's systematically break this down, starting from the very top. Our facial features and our shoulders are incredibly reactive. They reveal stress, dislike, or uncertainty in literally fractions of a second. Take the glabella. That's that little spot right between your eyes. It often wrinkles up into what we call a bunny nose when we instantly dislike or are disgusted by something. Or the lips. When something deeply bothers us, we instinctively suck our lips in completely. And if you ask someone a question and both of their shoulders shoot straight up, fast, that is a highly reliable, almost foolproof indicator that they genuinely do not know the answer.
Moving further down the body, our hands and posture are basically 24/7 broadcasting antennas. If you see someone's fingers interlaced, slowly moving back and forth like a little teepee, they're troubled by something. Now, what about hands on the hips, what they call arms akimbo? That generally means they're feeling territorial. But here's where the nuance is absolutely key. If they have their hands on their hips, but their thumbs are facing forward, the biological meaning totally flips. Now they're just inquisitive. Oh, and if you see a guy suddenly pulling at his shirt collar or ventilating his neck, he is definitely bothered by an immediate stimulus. But wait, what if someone actually knows they're stressed and actively tries to hide it from you? Say you spot someone secretly rubbing their tongue inside their cheek to mask their anxiety.
They're engaging in what Intel experts call perception management. And as a trained observer, the second you spot someone managing their perception, a massive alarm bell should go off in your head. You've got to ask yourself, why are they trying so hard to manage my perception right now?
Chapter 4. The Science of Space. Proxemics and the Baseline of Comfort.
Let's take this whole toolkit out of the interrogation room. How do our bodies react to the physical space of others? Well, in most Western cultures, it all starts with the handshake. A simple handshake is biologically huge because it's usually the very first physical touch between two people. The second those hands clasp, our bodies release bonding chemicals that signal an immediate like or dislike. It's incredibly powerful because it establishes your behavioral baseline for the entire rest of that interaction. Once you have that baseline set, notice how people use space to manage their comfort. If you're studying two people interacting, seriously, watch the feet. A sudden high degree of foot movement, crossing their legs away from the person, or physically rocking back, that usually means someone feels psychologically unsettled or even threatened. They're dynamically trying to find the perfect physical distance to regulate their own internal stress.
So, all right, if we know how to spot discomfort in a spy, and we know how to assess a stranger's spatial needs, how do we weaponize this? How do we use this knowledge in a highly strategic, everyday environment? Where do we practice?
That brings us to our fifth and final chapter, the poker table tell, spotting psychological discomfort in plain sight.
Welcome to the poker table. Now, believe it or not, sitting at a poker table shares incredible similarities with sitting across from a spy in an interrogation room. Why? Because both scenarios are entirely about high-stakes, real-time reactions to sudden stimuli. If you want to train your eye for this, Navarro suggests a crazy good exercise. Go watch poker footage, but play it at double speed. By speeding up the timeline, all those subtle pacifying behaviors just dramatically jump out at you, almost like a cartoon caricature. It literally makes the invisible visible.
And once your eye is trained, you start catching the hidden metrics of the human body. Take the number 8. You probably don't realize this, but your normal blink rate is right around 8 times a minute. Now, you aren't sitting there counting your own blinks, but a trained observer absolutely is. Because when that baseline number suddenly spikes or drops at the table, say right after you look at your cards, you're transmitting highly valuable, actionable data to everyone watching.
And that illustrates the ultimate takeaway here. Amateur poker players obsess over their own hidden hole cards. But look at this breakdown. Up to 80% of the intelligence you need to win is literally out in the open. It's found in the physical reactions of your opponents when the community cards hit the felt. The vast majority of the intel you need is freely broadcasted, if you just know to look up and pay attention. By combining our head-to-toe scan with these specific table tells, you can essentially map out a player's exact comfort level before a single chip even moves. For example, if their hands are sort of caging the cards, guarding them, their hand just increased in value. If their hands suddenly withdraw from the table entirely, they instinctively disliked what they just saw. And what about that classic chip shuffling trick? Honestly, it's not some intimidating master strategy. It's simply a self-soothing pacifier to relieve table stress. Oh, and always check the thumbs. Hidden thumbs mean they're disengaged. Hands fully out on the table with thumbs visible, they are highly engaged and absolutely ready to strike.
Joe Navarro summed this up perfectly. He says we spend so much of our lives obsessing over controlling our facial expressions, just desperate to maintain that perfect poker face. But we completely forget about our shoulders, our hands, our posture, our feet. You can have a poker face, for sure, but you absolutely cannot have a poker body. Eventually, your body is going to betray your true feelings.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty wild thought to chew on today. Since we primarily communicate nonverbally, and we are literally never in a state where we aren't transmitting data to the people around us, take a quick second right now. Look at your own posture. Look at what your hands are doing. Check your feet. What secrets are you silently broadcasting to the world?